Hey guys, what's going on? It's time for my 2021-2022 A-League season predictions. Again, sorry, I haven't been uploading much. As I said in the last video, which was the AFL Grand Final preview, I have been doing a lot of work with the Fanbabble Sports, with the Chat from the Back podcast, and writing some blogs on the website. Head over, check it out, see what everyone's saying. There's a few, with the season starting this week, there's a few things going up this week looking at the A-League season ahead. But let's get on to my predictions. I'm going to go through alphabetical order. So obviously I'll start with Adelaide United. A few changes this year, squad-wise. They've lost 10 players. I think their biggest loss is Alassane Toure, great young player. I did honestly think that they would build the side around him. I see him being a big player in the A-League for at least another 2 to 3 years before potentially going overseas. Big loss for them. He had a lot of pace for them. He created a lot of opportunities with that pace, getting into open areas behind the defence. But they have brought in 5 players. I think the biggest is the return of Isaias. Such an Adelaide legend. I think he could add a lot to them in the midfield. Admittedly, he won't have the pace of Alassane Toure, but I think what he can bring with his knowledge and his experience can counterbalance that a little bit. Pre-season form-wise for Adelaide, they've won 4, lost 1, haven't had a draw. Not too bad. I don't see them having the greatest of seasons. I've got them finishing in 8th position this year. Again, lots of things could happen. Lots of things like injuries or suspension stuff with the other teams. Who knows what could happen? But at this stage, I have Adelaide finishing 8th. Now, move on to the Brisbane Roar. They had a solid season last year. I don't know. I think that they could start strong early, but I don't know if they'll be able to hold it up again for another full season, and especially given we don't know what's happening with the border closures and entering and exiting the state. It's the same with a lot of the team, with a couple of the other teams here. What's going to happen going forward with that? Who knows? They lost 9 players, biggest being Jamie Young, who kept him in so many games. I think he was unlucky not to get Keeper of the Year last year. He's probably the best keeper in the last however many years. I don't really think there's been a better keeper than Jamie Young. Big loss. Going to be tough to cover that. You knew that if the ball's getting through with Jamie Young in goals, it was going to be an unreal shot to beat him. But they have signed 10 players. I think the biggest might be Matt Steinman. Seeing what he brings, he has played in the A-League before. Again, it'll be interesting to see the dynamic he can bring in. I think Brisbane could leak a few goals this year without Jamie Young, as I said. In saying that, they are unbeaten in the pre-season, but again, that is pre-season. They've won 4, lost none, drawn none. At the time of recording, they still have 1 game left to play. See how that game plays out. Could also affect predictions, but I do have them finishing 1 ahead of Adelaide. I have Brisbane in 7th. As I said, this season has been so hard to predict. I've been going over my notes. I've still got my notes here in front of me, trying to predict where the teams are going to finish. It's so hard. I've got a few changes from last season, obviously, but I don't know. Like, when speaking of changes, this next change, it's the Mariners. I've got them this year finishing in 9th. They made the finals last year. They've lost Stadge. They've brought in a Central Coast legend in Nick Montgomery. Whether he's got the managerial nous to keep them up the top and maybe even push them higher, I don't know. For me, that's the unknown. That's why I've rated them so lowly. They've also lost Alu Cole. We all knew that was happening ages ago, but still, it's such a big loss. He was so integral to that side this year. In saying that, they have brought in Nikolai Mueller from what the Wanderers. I think that's a great signing for them. It will bring a lot of control to their midfield. Is that enough to keep them at the top? I don't know. Their pre-season form, 1-2, lost 2. It'll be interesting to see how they go. I think early season form will be important for the Mariners. But it'll be, again, interesting to see how they go this season. Next, MacArthur. The new boys last year, they did have that opportunity, being the new boys, to catch everyone by surprise potentially, which they did. They made it to one win short of being in the grand final. I've got them finishing 6th. Pre-season, they haven't won a game, haven't drawn a game. They've lost 4. They've got rid of 12 players, brought in 8. Biggest bring in, I think, is Davida from Wellington. Whether he can be enough to put them in, keep them in the finals and maybe take them to the grand final, I don't know. I think the big loss for them is in the last couple of weeks with Adam Federici retiring. He really kept them in games. He was probably up there with Jamie Young and Andrew Redmayne, who won Keeper of the Year last season. He was probably up there with the best keepers. Losing him is going to be a big loss. How they recover from that, I don't know. I'm pretty sure they've signed Philip Curto. I'm pretty sure. If he can get to the form that he had 2 seasons ago with Western United, when they went one win short of the grand final, MacArthur could still be up there. But it's interesting. Curto did have quite a few injuries and missed a lot of game time last year, so it'll be interesting to see where MacArthur go. Now, on to the defending premiers and champions, Melbourne City. I don't see it much changing there. I've got them finishing 1st. 2 wins and a draw in pre-season, no losses. They've lost 6, signed 5. I think biggest loss for me going through was probably Craig Noone. Did score some goals, did have a great partnership with McLaren. But then again, they've brought in 5. And I think the biggest one they've brought in is Matt Leckie. He's been playing over in Europe for a long time, mainly in Germany. It's regular Socceroos pick, almost he was captain a couple of months ago, I believe, if I remember. I've got Melbourne City finishing 1st. I don't see much changing for them this year. Could be maybe next season where things start to change for them, but I don't know. And now they're cross-city rivals. Melbourne Victory, a massive fall from grace last year for them, finishing with the spoon, first time ever. They've got a new gaff this year with Tony Popovic, which is also one of the reasons I do have them finishing in 3rd. Popper doesn't lose. Plain and simple. The sides he's in charge of are always at the top. I see that being no different with Melbourne Victory. They'll be up there. Whether they win it or not, I don't know. They have lost. They've been undefeated in the preseason. 4 wins, no losses, no draws. They've lost 11. Just going through the names, really, realistically, Rudy Gestede, I think, is a big loss for them. A lot of the other players didn't really, I feel, impact them enough last year. He was a big impact player for them. Big signing, I think, is Jason Davidson. He'll shore him up. I think he's already been announced as the skipper. Great experience. Played all over the world. Played for the Socceroos. That is a big signing for me. But yeah, as I said, I have Melbourne Victory finishing in 3rd. Now move on to Newcastle. They did all right last year. They didn't finish with the spoon, which for them, I believe, with how they've been, is a great success. I see them being down the bottom again. I see them going 11th again. 1-1, lost 1. No draws in the pre-season. They lost 17 players though, and I think the biggest was Roy O'Donovan. He was such a prolific goal scorer. He's now gone to Sydney Olympic in the New South Wales NPL. Big pickup for Olympic, but for the Jets, it'll be interesting to see where they go. They've also lost Nikolai Topper-Stanley. it'll be interesting to see how the dynamic changes up there. They've got a rookie coach. Realistically, hasn't really been at that top level. He was assistant at Yokohama under Ange, I believe, but being that first team gaff in a cutthroat league like the A-League, like, yes, it's not as good as those European leagues, but it's so cutthroat in this league because every team expects to be there every year. I think their biggest, they've signed, I think, about 14 players. I think their biggest is going to be a rock for them at the back in Matt German. He will, I think that could be an area where they do get enough, they may even move high up the ladder if he does take control like he can do and has done in the past at Sydney FC when he was regularly playing at the Raw. He's one of those players I think can be very influential for them this season. Now to Perth. I've got them finishing 5th, but that's still, for me, that can change again, as I stated earlier, depending on the border restrictions and the border closures. Everyone knows how harsh the border lines have been with Perth through the whole pandemic. That could be a major thing for them, maybe not finishing as high as I've got them with 5th. But if they do work around that and they do get the games there, that could be huge for them. Pre-season, 1 win, 1 loss, 0 draws. They've lost 12. I think the big one is Economides. He's a great goal scorer. Yes, they've got Fornaroli up front, but he is coming towards the twilight of his career. I don't see him being as prolific going forward now. But the big signing for them, as everyone knows, Daniel Sturridge, that could maybe take the pressure off Fornaroli a bit, allow him that freedom, and he could score freely, which again, as I said, could have them finishing 5th, maybe even a little bit higher, but I'm not too sure about that one. But again, I think that's going to be an interesting thing for Perth is if they do get the chance to play at home, very well, good chance they will finish 5th or higher, but if not even make the finals, who knows. Now, on to Sydney, my boys, Sydney FC. Lost the grand final last year. We're beaten by a better team, undoubtedly. We've lost 6 players this season. I think probably the biggest is Ryan McGowan. Him and Wilco were rocks at the back. You knew going into a game, if they were the centre back pairing, we're already halfway to a win virtually. Losing him is going to be huge. Trying to get that extra rock next to Wilco. Wait and see what happens. Obviously, we've had some good results in the pre-season. We did lose to the Mariners though. We've had 3 wins, 1 loss, no draws. We've still got a game to be played. We made 5 signings. I think the biggest is Elvis Kempsova from Victory. I think he could be better than Costa. Everyone was dubious when Costa signed. He was so good. He scored so many important goals in that first season. Yes, last year he did fall off a bit, but he did pick back up. I think Kempsova could be better than that. I've got Sydney finishing 2nd this season again. I just think their systems they have are so solid. They're so proven over the last 5 to 6 years since Arnie was there and since Corrick has taken over. Again, they may drop, they may not. I don't know. I do have them finishing 2nd though and pushing City all the way. Next, I've got Phoenix. Obviously, I mentioned him earlier. They've lost 11. Their biggest, De Vita. He was their most influential player. They're undefeated in pre-season as well. 6 wins, 0 losses, 1 draw. Still got a game to be played. They've signed Gary Hooper back. Played with him before. Played in the A-League before. But being away from family again, I just think it's going to be a bridge too far this year. I've got them finishing 12th. I've got them finishing last. Sorry, Knicks fans, but I think another year away is just too much to ask. You've got to be proud of what they've done. it depends on if they can get back and play games in Wellington or in New Zealand, anywhere. But we have to wait and see on that. If they can, they might be able to finish a bit higher, but it all depends on where they play their games and how the games play out for them. Now on to the Western Sydney Wanderers. Obviously, a few losses there. In terms of the playing staff, they've lost 12. Some of them were loans that finished, so I'm not including them as the big losses because that was going to happen anyway with the loans unless they re-signed them. And were able to come to an agreement with their parent club. I mentioned him earlier, Nikolai Muller. He was very influential for the Wanderers in their midfield the last couple of seasons. Without that, I don't know, but yet again, they've also signed 11, and I don't know if it's official or not, but Jack Rodwell's meant to be signed with them. Big time player. He's played a lot of big games in England. Bringing that experience to the Wanderers could be major for them this year. They've had 2 wins, a loss and a draw in the pre-season. I've got them finishing 4th. So I've got the top 4 being the 2 main Sydney teams and the 2 main Melbourne teams. If that's the case, it's going to be a good season. If the Sydney teams and the Melbourne teams are up the top, they always pull crowds. Great for the game, great exposure for the sponsors, and we'll get more money coming into the game. But yeah, as I said, Wanderers 4th. Again, depending on other results and how well, and if they do get Rodwell and how well that affects the team, they could maybe potentially finish higher. Who knows? And finally, Western United. They've lost 11. Obviously, I mentioned him earlier, his keeper, Philip Curto. I think he's their biggest loss. He kept him so many games. I believe they did sign Jamie Young, so not much to lose there, but I think Jamie Young coming into a new team and trying to learn how they defend as a group could be a little rocky at the start, which you can see with their pre-season form. 1 draw, 2 losses, no wins. It'll be interesting to see, as I said, it'll be interesting to see how that defence works with Jamie Young and how he can get them into line, like how did Brisbane. I think they've signed 10 players this year, new players brought in. I think the biggest is Neil Kilkenny from Perth. Just see the calmness he portrays on the pitch. No emotion, gets the job done. That could be a big gain for Western United. They did fall off a bit last year. Obviously, second year syndrome hit everyone there as a club. I think Ruden's gone. They've brought in Aloisi. He's been around the traps in the A-League for ages. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I have Western United finishing in 10th. I don't know if they will make the finals again. I think they will be. I think that's roughly what they did in the season last. But if they perform the way they're expected with the lineup, they could very well finish higher. But again, like with every side, realistically, but majorly with teams from Victoria, New South Wales, and Perth, the border closures, I don't know. Again, I hate to say it, this could be another COVID affected season. I hope not, but we'll have to wait and see. I'll put up my final ladder prediction now. So let me know what you guys think of that prediction in the comments down below. Share this video around. Head over to fanbabblesports.com. Check out anything that's coming out. Go back, look at all the previous stuff. I've got a post up there recently looking at the streaming service providers here in Australia for football and what we're actually paying. And when I was going through doing that and getting the numbers, I couldn't believe how much we actually have to pay. It's ridiculous. Have a read of that. Share that around. If you see anything else on the website, share it around. Check out the merchandise. We got stuff going up. We got new stuff coming out every so often. Still working on new designs for different things. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. If you enjoyed what you're seeing, like the video. As I said, share it around. But as I always say, keep living a great life. Peace.